Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Choices are A. Overreacts, B. Reciprocates, C. Retaliates, and D. Deviates. In habitats with limited nutrients, certain fungus species grow on the roots of trees, engaging in mutually beneficial relationships known as ectomycorrhizae. In this symbiotic exchange, the tree provides the fungus with carbon, a nutrient necessary for both species, and the fungus, blank, by enhancing the tree's ability to absorb nitrogen, another key nutrient from the soil. So a key part of this is the fact that this relationship is symbiotic, meaning that it is mutually beneficial. So the tree provides the fungus with carbon, and the fungus gives back by enhancing the tree's ability to absorb nitrogen. So A. Overreacts. This is incorrect because the fungus doesn't overreact by enhancing the tree's ability to absorb nitrogen. It gives back by enhancing the tree's ability to absorb nitrogen. So A is incorrect. B. Reciprocates. This would make sense because the tree provides the fungus with carbon, and the fungus reciprocates by enhancing the tree's ability to absorb nitrogen, which helps establish the mutually beneficial relationship. So B seems to be the correct answer. C. Retaliates. Retaliates is incorrect because it would imply that it harms or goes against it. But this is incorrect because this is a mutually beneficial relationship, so both help each other. So retaliates is incorrect. D. Deviates. This is incorrect because deviates would imply that it strays away from, but as before, this is a mutually beneficial relationship, so both help each other. So deviates would be incorrect. And B. Reciprocates is the correct answer. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? A. Recognizable, B. Intriguing, C. Significant, and D. Useful. Handedness, a preferential use with either the right or left hand, typically is easy to observe in humans. Because this trait is present but less blank in many other animals, animal behavior researchers often employ tasks specifically designed to reveal individual animals' preferences for a certain hand or paw. So option A says recognizable. This makes sense in the context of this text, where it says that it's easy to observe in humans, but this trait is less easy to observe in other animals, and that the researchers have to employ tasks to find out an animal's preferences for a hand or a paw. So A seems to be the correct choice. B. Intriguing. Intriguing is incorrect here because the text doesn't imply anything about it being intriguing or not. The researchers are simply determining the individual animal's preferences for a hand or a paw. So B is incorrect. C. Significant. Significant is incorrect for the same reason as B, because the text doesn't imply anything about being significant or not. D. Useful. Like B and C, this is incorrect, because the text doesn't say anything about it being useful or not. It just shows that researchers are trying to find out the handedness for different animals. So D is incorrect, and A is the correct choice. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? A. Responsiveness to, B. Ambivalence toward, C. Renunciation of, and D. Mastery over. In Nature Poem 2017, Kumeyaay poet Tommy Pico portrays his blank, the natural world, by honoring the centrality of nature within his tribe's traditional beliefs, while simultaneously expressing his distaste for being in wilderness settings himself. So choice A says responsiveness to. This is incorrect because this would imply that he's quick to respond to nature, but that isn't supported by the text, because the text says that he honors the centrality of nature while also distastes being in nature himself. So A is incorrect. B. Ambivalence toward. This seems to be correct because ambivalence means mixed feelings, which reflects what he says in the next part of the sentence, by honoring the centrality of nature while also distaste being in wilderness settings himself. So B seems to be the correct choice. C. Renunciation of. This is incorrect because renunciation of would imply that he gives up on nature, but clearly it shows that he still likes nature to some degree. So C is incorrect. D. Mastery over. Mastery over means that he would control nature, but this is clearly incorrect. So B is the correct choice. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Choices are A. Predatory, B. Obscure, C. Diverse, and D. Localized. Some scientists have suggested that mammals in the Mesozoic era were not a very blank group, but paleontologist Zhe Luo's research suggests that early mammals living in the shadow of dinosaurs weren't all ground-dwelling insectivores. Fossils of various plant-eating mammals have been found in China, including species like Velodon diplomus, which Luo says could glide like a flying squirrel. So, choice A says predatory. This is incorrect because the context of this doesn't fit with the choice predatory, because it says here that all early mammals living shadow dinosaurs weren't all ground-dwelling insectivores. So instead it shows a contrast that these animals in these Mesozoic era weren't all just insectivores. So A is incorrect. B. Obscure. Obscure would imply that scientists don't know very well what the early animals in the early Mesozoic era were like, but this is incorrect because clearly they do know many things. C. Diverse. This seems to be correct because in the context it makes sense where it says that the early mammals living in the shadow dinosaurs weren't all ground-dwelling insectivores. And the second sentence goes on to discuss a specific species that was very unique, showing how these animals weren't just like one type. So C seems to be the correct answer. D. Localized. Localized doesn't make sense here because it would imply that the animals living in the Mesozoic era were a localized group, or that they lived in one area, but clearly the text doesn't show this. So C is the correct answer. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Choices are A. Prevail, B. Succumb, C. Diverge, and D. Intersect. Critics have asserted that fine art and fashion rarely blink in a world where artists create timeless works for exhibition and designers periodically produce new styles for the public to buy. Luciano Shoshone Bannock, beadwork artist and designer Jamie Ukuma, challenges this view. Her work can be seen at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and purchased through her online boutique. Choice A. Prevail. This is incorrect because prevail would imply that fine art and fashion rarely prevail or last, but here it can be seen that her art and fashion can be seen in a museum of art and purchased through her online boutique. So A is incorrect. B. Succumb. Succumb would imply that the fine art and fashion rarely surrender, but this simply doesn't make sense. So B is incorrect. C. Diverge. This is incorrect because this would imply that fine art and fashion rarely diverge, but in the context of this text, that doesn't follow what the text is saying. So C is incorrect. D. Intersect. This seems to be correct because in the context it's saying that fine art and fashion rarely intersect, but these two artists and fashion designers go against this view, and their art can be seen in a museum of art and purchased through their online boutique. So D is the correct answer. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Choices are A. Disorienting, B. Tenuous, C. Nuanced, and D. Unoriginal. The author's claim about the relationship between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens is blank, as it fails to account for several recent archaeological discoveries. To be convincing, his argument would need to address recent finds of additional hominid fossils, such as the latest Denisovan species and Homo longi. A. Disorienting. This is incorrect because disorienting would imply that the claim is hard to grasp or understand, but the text doesn't say anything about the claim being hard to grasp or understand. So A is incorrect. B. Tenuous. Tenuous makes sense here because it implies that the claim lacks substance, which it does because it fails to account for several recent archaeological discoveries. So B could be the correct answer. C. Nuanced. Nuanced is incorrect because it implies that the claim lacks precision, which it doesn't. So C is incorrect. D. Unoriginal. Unoriginal is incorrect because the claim doesn't lack originality, and nowhere in the text does it say that. It just says that it fails to account for several recent archaeological discoveries. So D is incorrect, and B is the correct choice. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Choices are A. Unobtrusive, B. Concealed, C. Approximate, and D. Peripheral. The province of Choconcho was situated on the Pacific coast, hundreds of kilometers southeast of Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztec Empire. Because Choconcho's location within the empire was so blank, cacao and other trade goods produced there could reach the capital only after a long overland journey. Choice A, unobtrusive. Unobtrusive is incorrect here because unobtrusive would imply that the Chokancho's location of the empire did not attract attention, but in the text it doesn't mention that it didn't attract attention, so A is incorrect. B, concealed. Concealed would imply that Chokancho's location was hidden or wasn't very well known, but this is incorrect because nothing in the text highlights this. C, approximate. Approximate would mean that Chokancho's location wasn't very well known and that they didn't really know where it was, but this is incorrect because they know it right here, hundreds of kilometers southeast of Tenochtitlan. So C is incorrect. D, peripheral. Peripheral implies that Chokancho's location was far away on the edge, and this is correct because the rest of the sentence, cacao and other trade goods produced there could reach the capital only after a long overland journey. Because this emphasizes how it would take a long time to get to the capital, D is the correct choice.
Bonnie?
Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Choices are A, pragmatic, B, controversial, C, extensive, and D, universal. Ophelia Zepeda's contributions to the field of linguistics are blank. Her many accomplishments include working as a linguistics professor and bilingual poet, authoring the first Tohono O'odham grammar book, and co-founding the American Indian Language Development Institute. Choice A says pragmatic. This is incorrect because pragmatic implies that her contributions only relate to practical matters, but it's seen clearly that her accomplishments include more than just practical matters. It includes more intelligent artistic matters as well. So A is incorrect. B, controversial. This is incorrect because her contributions weren't controversial. They didn't arouse any debate or doubts. Clearly seen when she worked as a linguistics professor, bilingual poet. She wrote a grammar book and co-founded the American Indian Language Development Institute. So B is incorrect. C, extensive. This seems to be correct because extensive implies that her contributions were very considerable and to a great extent. And this is correct, seen in the rest of the sentence where it lists out her accomplishments. So C seems to be the correct answer. D, universal. This is incorrect because this implies that her contributions were universal to the field in linguistics. This is incorrect because her contributions to the field of linguistics was limited to only American Indian languages, not to the whole field of linguistics. So D is incorrect and C is the correct answer. Based on the text, how does the Lord Chancellor respond to the crowd? The following text is adapted from Lewis Carroll's 1889 satirical novel Sylvie and Bruno. A crowd has gathered outside a room belonging to the warden, an official who reports to the Lord Chancellor. One man, who was more excited than the rest, flung his hat high into the air and shouted, as well as I could make out, "Hoorah for the subwarden!" Everybody roared, but whether it was for the subwarden or not did not clearly appear. Some were shouting bread, and some taxes, but no one seemed to know what it was they really wanted. All this I saw from the open window of the warden's breakfast saloon, looking across the shoulder of the Lord Chancellor. What can it all mean? He kept repeating to himself. I never heard such shouting before, and at this time of the morning too, and with such unanimity. So option A says, he asks what the meaning of the crowd's shouting, even though he claims to know what the crowd wants. This is incorrect, because although he asks for what the crowd's shouting means, he doesn't claim to know what the crowd wants. So A is incorrect. B, he indicates a desire to speak to the crowd, even though the crowd has asked to speak to the subwarden. This is incorrect because the Lord Chancellor never said that he wanted to speak to the crowd. So B is incorrect. C, he expresses sympathy for the crowd's demands, even though the crowd's shouting annoys him. This is incorrect because the text never says that the Lord Chancellor expressed sympathy for the crowd's demands, and it isn't clearly stated that the crowd's shouting annoys him. It just causes him to repeat, what can it all mean? So C is incorrect. And D, he describes the crowd as being united, even though the crowd clearly appears otherwise. This is correct because he says here, and with such unanimity, but up here in the first paragraph it says that everybody roared, but whether it was for the subwarden or not did not clearly appear. Some were shouting bread and some taxes, but no one seemed to know what it was they really wanted. So the crowd is clearly not unanimous, but the Lord Chancellor describes them as being unanimous. So D is the correct choice. Which finding, if true, would most directly support the student's claim? Born in 1891 to a Quechua-speaking family in the Andes Mountains of Peru, Martin Chamby is today considered to be one of the most renowned figures of Latin American photography. In a paper for an art history class, a student claims that Chamby's photographs have considerable ethnographic value. In his work, Chamby was able to capture diverse elements of Peruvian society, representing his subject with both dignity and authenticity. So option A says Chamby took many commissioned portraits of wealthy Peruvians, but he also produced hundreds of images carefully documenting the peoples, sites, and customs of indigenous communities of the Andes. This seems to be correct because the student's claim is that Chamby's photographs have considerable ethnographic value. And option A demonstrates how Chamby documented the diverse elements of Peruvian society. So A seems to be correct. B. Chamby's photographs demonstrate a high level of technical skill, as seen in his strategic use of illumination to create dramatic light and shadow contrast. This is incorrect because the student's claim is that the photographs have considerable ethnographic value, not that Chamby's photographs demonstrated high level of technical skill. So B is incorrect. C. During his lifetime, Chamby was known and celebrated both within and outside his native Peru, as his work was published in places like Argentina, Spain, and Mexico. This is incorrect for the same reason as B, because C does not focus on Chamby's photographs having considerable ethnographic value. So C is incorrect. D. Some of the peoples and places Chamby photographed had long been popular subjects for Peruvian photographers. This is incorrect because this, like B and C, doesn't focus on Chamby's photographs having considerable ethnographic value. Instead, this focuses on popular subjects for Peruvian photographers. So D is incorrect, meaning that the correct choice is A. Which quotation from the interviews best illustrates the journalist's claim? Art collectives, like the United States and Vietnam-based collective, the Propeller Group, or Cuba's Los Carpinteros, are groups of artists who agreed to work together, perhaps for stylistic reasons, or to advance certain shared political ideals, or to help mitigate the cost of supplies and studio space. Regardless of the reasons, art collectives usually involve some collaboration among the artists. Based on a recent series of interviews with various art collectives, an art journalist claimed that this can be difficult for artists who are often used to having sole control over their work. So the claim here is that art collectives can be difficult for artists who are used to having sole control over their work. Option A says, the first collective I joined included many amazingly talented artists, and we enjoyed each other's company, but because we had a hard time sharing credit and responsibility for our work, the collective didn't last. This seems to be correct because it best illustrates the journalist's claim, which is that art collectives can be difficult for artists who are used to having sole control of their work. And it shows this by saying that they had a hard time sharing credit and responsibility for their work. So A seems to be correct. B. We work together, but that doesn't mean that individual projects are equally the work of all of us. Many of our projects are primarily the responsibility of whoever originally proposed the work to the group. So this is incorrect because it doesn't show how art collectives can be difficult for artists who have sole control, who used to having sole control over their work. So B is incorrect. C. Having worked as a member of a collective for several years, it's sometimes hard to recall what it was like to work alone without the collective support. But that support encourages my individual expression rather than limits it. This is incorrect because it shows how art collective makes it easier to work, rather than showing how art collectives can be difficult for artists who are used to having sole control over their work. So C is incorrect. D. Sometimes an artist from outside the collective will choose to collaborate with us on a project, but all of those projects fit within the larger themes of the work the collective does on its own. This is incorrect because it doesn't, like B and C, it doesn't show how art collectives can be difficult for artists who are used to having sole control over their work. So D is incorrect, meaning the correct choice is A. Which finding, if true, would most directly support the researcher's hypothesis? Researchers hypothesized that a decline in the population of dusky sharks near the mid-Atlantic coast of North America led to a decline in the population of eastern oysters in the region. Dusky sharks do not typically consume eastern oysters, but do consume cow nose rays, which are the main predator of the oysters. So choice A says, decline in the regional abundance of dusky shark's prey other than cow nose rays are associated with regional declines in the dusky shark abundance. This is incorrect because it's saying that the decline in the abundance of dusky shark prey other than cow-nosed rays, which is just saying that the decline in dusky shark prey are associated with regional decline in dusky shark abundance. This doesn't prove the futures hypothesis, which is that a decline in dusky sharks mean a decline in the population of eastern oysters. So A is wrong. B. Eastern oyster abundance tends to be greater in areas with both dusky sharks and cow-nosed rays than in areas with only dusky sharks. This is incorrect, and in fact it goes against the hypothesis, saying that eastern oyster abundance tends to be more so in areas with both dusky sharks and cow-nosed rays, meaning that the more cow-nosed rays, the more eastern oysters. So B is incorrect. C. Consumption of eastern oysters by cow-nosed rays in the region substantially increased before the regional decline in dusky shark abundance. So this is incorrect because it's saying that before the decline in dusky shark abundance, the consumption of eastern oyster by cow-nosed rays was far greater. So the decline in dusky shark abundance led to a decrease in the amount of oyster consumption, so an increase in the amount of eastern oysters total. So C is incorrect. D. Cow-nosed rays have increased in regional abundance as dusky sharks have decreased in regional abundance. This is correct because if dusky sharks decrease in regional abundance, then cow-nosed rays increase regional abundance, then there would be a decrease in the number of eastern oysters because cow-nosed rays eat eastern oysters. So D is the correct choice. Which finding, if true, would most directly support Parody's argument? In the 20th century, ethnographers made a concerted effort to collect Mexican-American folklore, but they did not always agree about that folklore's origins. Scholars such as Aurelio Espinosa claim that Mexican-American folklore derived largely from the folklore of Spain, which ruled Mexico and what is now the southwestern United States from the 16th to early 19th centuries. Scholars such as Americo Parodies, by contrast, argue that while some Spanish influence is undeniable, Mexican-American folklore is mainly the product of the ongoing interactions of various cultures in Mexico and the United States. So the argument here by Parody is that although there is some Spanish influence in the folklore, it's mostly because of the interaction between Mexico and the United States. A says the folklore that the ethnographers collected includes several songs written in the form of a decima, a type of poem originating in the late 16th century. This is incorrect because Parody's argument is that Spanish influence was minimal compared to Mexican in the United States. So A is incorrect because it points to the fact that Spanish influence was more. B. Much of the folklore that the ethnographers collected had similar elements from region to region. This is incorrect because this doesn't support either argument, because the folklore being similar from region to region doesn't show its origins. So B is incorrect. C. Most of the folklore that the ethnographers collected was previously unknown to scholars. This is incorrect for the same reason as B, because it doesn't highlight the folklore's origins, and that it was because the folklore was influenced from the interactions between Mexico and the United States. So C is incorrect. D. Most of the folklore that the ethnographers collected consisted of corridos, ballads about history and social life, of a clearly recent origin. This is correct because Spanish influence ended in the early 19th centuries, and this highlights that the folklore was of a clearly recent origin. So this points to how this was because of the interactions between Mexico and the United States. So D is correct. Which choice most logically completes the text? Birds of many species ingest foods containing carotenoids, pigmented molecules that are converted into feather coloration. Coloration tends to be especially saturated in male birds' feathers, and because carotenoids also confer health benefits, the deeply saturated colors generally serve to communicate what is known as an honest signal of a bird's overall fitness to potential mates. However, ornithologists Alison J. Schultz and others have found that males in several species of the tanner genus Rhamphocilus use microstructures in their feathers to manipulate light, creating the appearance of a deeper saturation without the bird necessarily having to maintain a carotenoid-rich diet. These findings suggest that blank. So option A says individual male tanagers can engage in honest signaling without relying on carotenoid consumption. This is wrong for the fact that it's not honest signaling, it could be dishonest signaling. This is because Honest signaling is when they eat a carotenoid-rich diet that gives them the deeply saturated feathers, and dishonest signaling is when they use the microstructures in their feathers to manipulate light, creating the appearance of deeper saturation without having to maintain a carotenoid-rich diet. Therefore, A is incorrect. B. Feather microstructures may be less effective than deeply saturated feathers for signaling overall fitness. This is incorrect because feather microstructures help to convey a deeper saturation of colors, so this sentence itself does not make sense. So B is incorrect. C. Scientists have yet to determine why tanagers have a preference for mates with colorful appearances. This is incorrect because scientists do know why, and that's because with more colorful appearances means that the bird is more fit because they have eaten more carotenoids. So C is incorrect. And D. A male tanager's appearance may function as a dishonest signal of the individual's overall fitness. This is correct because a dishonest signal is when they use the microstructures in their feathers to manipulate light, creating the appearance of deeper saturation without having to eat a carotenoid-rich diet. Therefore, D is correct. Which choice most logically completes the text? Among social animals that care for their young, such as chickens, macaw monkeys, and humans, newborns appear to show an innate attraction to faces and face-like stimuli. Elizabeth Versace and her colleagues use an image of 3 black dots arranged in the shape of eyes and a nose or mouth to test whether this trait also occurs in testudo tortoises, which live alone and do not engage in parental care. They found that tortoise hatchlings showed a significant preference for the image, suggesting that blank. So, choice A says, face-like stimuli are likely perceived as harmless by newborns of social species that practice parental care, but as threatening by newborns of solitary species without parental care. This is incorrect because of the testudo tortoise example, where testudo tortoises do not engage in parental care, but their hatchlings show a significant preference for the image of faces or face-like stimuli. Therefore, A is incorrect. B. Researchers should not assume that an innate attraction to face-like stimuli is necessarily an adaptation related to social interaction or parental care. This seems to be correct because both the newborns with parental care and the newborns without parental care show a significant preference for the image, meaning that this trait is not an adaptation related to social interaction or parental care. So B seems like the correct choice. C. Researchers can assume that the attraction to face-like stimuli that is seen in social species that practice parental care is learned rather than innate. This is incorrect because of the testudo tortoise example, where although the testudo tortoises did not engage in parental care, their tortoise hatchlings had a significant preference for the image of a face or face-like stimuli. Therefore, C is incorrect. D. Newly hatched testudo tortoises show a stronger preference for face-like stimuli than adult testudo tortoises do. This is incorrect, but it's not related to the text, where the text is mostly about hatchlings, not adult tortoises. So D is incorrect, meaning the correct choice is B. Which choice most logically completes the text? The increased integration of digital technologies throughout the process of book creation in the late 20th and early 21st centuries lowered the cost of book production, but those decreased costs have been most significant in the manufacturing and distribution process, which occurs after the authoring, editing, and design of the book are complete. This suggests that in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, blank. So option A says, digital technologies made it easier than it had been previously for authors to write very long works and get them published. This is incorrect because the text doesn't focus on authors writing works and getting them published. It focuses more so on the cost of book production. So A is incorrect. B. Customers generally expected the cost of books to decline relative to the cost of other consumer goods. This is incorrect because in the text it doesn't mention anything about customers and their expectance of books to decline in cost relative to any other goods. So B is incorrect. C. Publishers increased the variety of their offerings by printing more unique titles, but also printed fewer copies of each title. This, like B and A, is not mentioned in the text, and therefore is incorrect. D. The costs of writing, editing, and designing a book were less affected by the technologies used than were the costs of manufacturing and distributing a book. This is correct because it says right here that the lowered cost of book production, but those decreased costs have been most significant in the manufacturing and distribution process, which occurs after the authoring, editing, and design of the book are complete. Therefore, D is the correct answer. What choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? When external forces are applied to common glass made from silicates, energy builds up around minuscule defects in the material, resulting in fractures. Recently, engineer Erika Frankfurt of Tampere University in Finland used the chemical blank to make a glassy solid that can withstand higher strain than silicate glass can before fracturing. So one of the key aspects here is that the phrase compound aluminum oxide is a restrictive appositive, meaning that it's a noun phrase that describes the word before it, and therefore it doesn't need any punctuation. So A, B, and C are wrong because they all include punctuation. Therefore D is correct because no punctuation is needed here. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? In many of her landscape paintings from the 1970s and 1980s, Lebanese-American artist Atel Adnan worked to capture the essence of California's fog-shrouded Mount Tamalpais region through abstraction, using splotches of color to represent the area's features. Interestingly, the triangle represented the mountain itself, blank, among the few defined figures in her paintings. A. R. This is incorrect because the plural verb are doesn't agree with the singular subject triangle. So A is incorrect. B. Have been. This is incorrect because the plural verb have been doesn't agree with the singular subject triangle. So B is incorrect. C. Were. This is incorrect because the plural verb were doesn't agree with the singular subject triangle. D. Is. This is correct because the singular verb is agrees with the singular verb triangle. So D is the correct choice. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Stomata, tiny pore structures in a leaf that absorb gases needed for plant growth, open when guard cells surrounding each pore swell with water. In a pivotal 2007 article, Plant Cell Blank showed that lipid molecules called phosphatidylinositol phosphates are responsible for signaling guard cells to open stomata. So a key aspect here is that there is no punctuation needed to separate the proper noun Yuri Lee from the title Plant Cell Biologist. Therefore, A, B, and D are incorrect because they all include some form of punctuation. But C is correct because it has no punctuation. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Researchers studying magnetosensation have determined why some soil-dwelling roundworms in the southern hemisphere move in the opposite direction of Earth's magnetic field when searching for blank. In the northern hemisphere, the magnetic field points downward into the ground, while in the southern hemisphere, it points up toward the surface and away from worms' food sources. So choice A says food, colon. This seems to be correct because a colon can be used to explain information that has come before it. So A seems to be the correct answer. B. Food, comma. This is incorrect because a comma can't be used to connect two independent clauses in this manner, and this results in a comma splice. So B is incorrect. C. Food, while. This is incorrect because while can't be used to connect two independent clauses without a comma. D. Food. This is incorrect because this results in a run-on sentence. So the correct answer is A. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Researchers studying the terracotta army, the thousands of life-size statues of warriors found interred near the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang of China, were shocked to realize that the shape of each statue's ears, like the shape of each person's ears, blank unique. A. R. This is incorrect because the plural verb are doesn't agree with the singular subject, the shape. So A is incorrect. B is. This seems to be correct because the singular verb is agrees with the singular subject, the shape. So B seems to be the correct answer. C. Were. This is incorrect because the plural verb were doesn't agree with the singular subject, the shape. So C is incorrect. D. Have been. This is incorrect because the plural verb have been doesn't agree with the singular subject, the shape. So D is incorrect, meaning the correct answer is B. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? In 1943, in the midst of World War II, mathematics professor Grace Hopper was recruited by the U.S. military to help the war effort by solving complex equations. Hopper's subsequent career would involve more than just Blink. As a pioneering computer programmer, Hopper would help usher in the digital age. A. Equations, comma, though, semicolon. This seems to be correct because the comma properly separates the independent clause from the phrase that modifies it, though, and the semicolon properly elaborates on the information in the beginning of the sentence. B. Equations, comma, though, comma. This is incorrect because the comma after though results in a comma splice, where it attempts to connect two independent clauses, so B is incorrect. C. Equations, period, though, comma. This C attempts to split the sentence into two sentences, but it illogically places though in the second part of the sentence, whereas it should be placed in the first sentence, so C is incorrect. D. Equations, though. This is incorrect because this would result in a run-on sentence, where there needs to be some sort of punctuation to separate the two independent clauses, so D is incorrect, and the correct answer is A. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? Earth's auroras, colorful displays of light seen above the northern and southern poles, result, broadly speaking, from the sun's activity. Blank. The sun releases charged particles that are captured by Earth's magnetic field and channeled toward the poles. These particles then collide with atoms in the atmosphere, causing the atoms to emit auroral light. A. Specifically. This seems to be correct because the first sentence discusses general information about Earth's auroras, while the second sentence goes into specifics about the sun's activity and how it causes Earth's auroras. So A seems to be the correct answer. B. Similarly. This is incorrect because this implies that the second sentence will discuss information that is similar to the broad information about Earth's auroras in the first sentence, but this is not the case, because the second sentence goes into specifics about Earth's auroras discussed in the first sentence. So B is incorrect. C. Nevertheless. This is incorrect because this implies that there is a contrast between the first and second sentence, which is not the case, where the second sentence goes into specifics of the information in the first sentence. So C is incorrect. D. Hence. This is incorrect because this implies that the information in the second sentence results from the information in the first sentence, but this is not the case, where the second sentence goes into specifics about the information introduced in the first sentence. So the correct answer is A. Specifically. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? Some members of the U.S. Supreme Court have resisted calls to televise the court's oral arguments, concerned that the participants would be tempted to perform for the cameras, and thus lower the quality of the discourse. Blank. The justices worry that most viewers would not even watch the full deliberations, only short clips that could be misinterpreted and mischaracterized. A. However, this is incorrect because this implies that the information in the second sentence contrasts the information in the first sentence, but the information in the second sentence adds another reason or detail that supports the claim in the first sentence. So A is incorrect. B. Additionally, this seems to be correct because of the second sentence added a reason that supports the claim in the first sentence, so B seems to be correct. C. In comparison. This implies that the information in the second sentence will be compared to the information in the first sentence, but this is incorrect because the second sentence does not compare to the information in the first sentence. D. For example, this is incorrect because this implies that the second sentence will illustrate the claim in the first sentence, but the second sentence doesn't illustrate the claim in the first sentence, so D is incorrect. And the correct answer is B. Additionally. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? The more diverse and wide-ranging an animal's behaviors, the larger and more energy-demanding the animal's brains tend to be. Blank. From an evolutionary perspective, animals that perform only basic actions should allocate fewer resources to growing and maintaining brain tissue. The specialized subtypes of ants within colonies provide an opportunity to explore this hypothesis. A. Subsequently. This is incorrect because subsequently implies that the information in the second sentence occurs in a chronological order, but this is incorrect because information in the second sentence is based on the information in the first sentence. So A is incorrect. B. Besides. This is incorrect because it implies that the information in the second sentence establishes a separate point from the information in the first sentence, but this is not the case. C. Nevertheless. Nevertheless implies that the information in the second sentence is in spite of what was discussed in the first sentence, but this is not the case. C. D. Thus. This seems to be correct because thus implies that the information in the second sentence is based off the information in the first sentence, which is true because the claim in the first sentence is that the larger and more energy demanding the animal brains tend to be when the animal has more diverse and wide-ranging actions, and that because of this, animals that perform only basic actions should allocate fewer resources to growing and maintaining brain tissue. So D is the correct answer. The student wants to emphasize the duration and purpose of Cohen's and Rodriguez's work. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. The Gullah are a group of African Americans who have lived in parts of the southeastern United States since the 18th century. Gullah culture is influenced by West African and Central African traditions. Louis Miller Cohen is a Gullah historian, storyteller, and preservationist. She founded the Gullah Museum of Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, in 2003. Vermel Rodriguez is a Gullah historian, artist, and preservationist. She founded the Gullah Museum of Georgetown, South Carolina, in 2003. A. At the Gullah Museums in Hilton Head Island and Georgetown, South Carolina, visitors can learn more about the Gullah people who have lived in the region for centuries. This is incorrect because while it establishes the purpose of Cohen's and Rodriguez's work, it doesn't emphasize the duration. So A is incorrect. B. Louis Miller Cohen and Vermel Rodriguez have worked to preserve the culture of the Gullah people who have lived in the United States since the 18th century. This is incorrect because it establishes the purpose of Cohen's and Rodriguez's work, but like A, it doesn't emphasize the duration. So B is incorrect. C. Since 2003, Louis Miller Cohen and Vermel Rodriguez have worked to preserve Gullah culture through their museum. This seems to be correct because it emphasizes the purpose, which is to preserve Gullah culture through their museums, and the duration since 2003. So C seems to be the correct answer. D. Influenced by the traditions of West and Central Africa, Gullah culture developed in parts of the southeastern United States in the 18th century. This is incorrect because it does not emphasize the duration or the purpose of Cohen and Rodriguez's work. So D is incorrect, meaning the correct answer is C. The student wants to emphasize the aim of the research study. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. The factors that affect clutch size, the number of eggs laid at one time, have been well studied in birds, but not in lizards. A team led by Shea Mary of Tel Aviv University investigated which factors influence lizard clutch size. Mary's team obtained clutch size and habitat data for over 3,900 species and analyzed the data with statistical models. Larger clutch size was associated with environments in higher latitudes that have more seasonal change. Lizards in high latitude environments may lay larger clutches to take advantage of shorter windows of favorable conditions. A. Researchers wanted to know which factors influence lizard egg clutch size because such factors have been well studied in birds but not in lizards. This seems to be correct because the student wants to emphasize the aim of the research study, and it clearly shows here that the aim was to research which factors influence lizard egg clutch size. So A seems to be correct. B. After they obtained data for over 3,900 lizard species, researchers determined that larger clutch size was associated with environments in higher latitudes that have more seasonal change. This is incorrect because this presents the conclusions or findings of the research study, not the aim of the research study. C. We now know that lizards in higher latitude environments may lay larger clutches to take advantage of shorter windows of favorable conditions. This is incorrect for the same reason as B, because it presents the conclusions of the study, not the aim of the study. D. Researchers obtained clutch size and habitat data for over 3,900 lizard species and analyzed the data with statistical models. This is incorrect because this presents the method they used to find the conclusions of the study, not the aim of the research study. So the correct answer is A.